the Possessed bomb. It's what you all want to know about. It's what Andy is dying to find out about. We're going to tell you how to play with it and how to play against it. Here we go.
So welcome guys, it's Andy here from D6 Evolution and I'm with Cheema from Glasshammer Gaming.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on again, bro. It's absolutely so much fun coming on doing these videos with you. I love it.
Yeah, it's almost a tradition before you go to LVO to talk about what broken list you've come up with.
Yeah. I mean, last year we talked about the Death Watch and the Blood Angels.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I had lots of fun out there, guys.
Yeah. And of course, people are talking about the new scary chaos list on the block, which is the Possessed bomb. And if there is a broken list, Manny knows about it.
Yeah, I do my best to find out what's doing well in the meta right now, what I can exploit and all of that kind of stuff, because I do like to go to events and do as well as I can. So it's important to know about all of these things, and I think it's great, like Andy brought me on here, and of course our job is to tell people who are using it how to take advantage of them, but also to tell people who play against it what to watch out for.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. So the first part of this, we're going to talk about how the list actually works, because it's actually quite a complex list.
Yeah, there's loads of moving parts.
There's so much buffs, there's so many components of it, and I think as long as you understand how it works, you can catch people off if they're doing it wrong to start with.
Now, here you go, guys. The cool thing here is what I want you guys to do is anybody out there that's really bored of playing Marines, this is your army. Because I started this because I'm getting bored of using Marines and bored that Marines are everywhere. And my Centurions, they're quite cool to use, but even them, they're very, I come down here, I shoot here, I come down here, I shoot here. They're kind of getting a little bit boring, whereas this army has a lot of play to it. It's not bland. There are so many things you can do in different situations. I think that's cool.
And I didn't know about this list till a couple of weeks ago. Then people just started messaging the channel all the time going, what do you think about this Possessed list? And I was like, and then Lewis, one of the other people on the channel, was like, I'm running the Possessed list. We need to know about this.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome.
And I watched a battle report last night on it. I was like, I did not realise how utterly broken it is. Yeah. It's so powerful.
And there's so many iterations of it that you can put in loads of different things. For example, it's not like, an Imperial Fist list. It's not like an Imperial Fist list where you're like, this list works when I have 60 intercessors. The only thing I need to worry about is the last 200 points. Is it 2 Thunderfires? Is it 2 Whirlwinds? And, it's not like that. They're big changes. It's like, do I have triple battalion? Or do I just have 1 battalion and some Supreme Command with more characters? Do I need obliterators? Is there not enough CP for obliterators? There's loads of options you can do, and all of them work, which is really the cool thing about this list.
Yeah. So what we're going to quickly do, Manny's going to put some models on the table. We're going to go through how the list functions as a basic list, and then we're going to talk about how he deploys and how he'd counter-deploy if he went second.
Of course,
and
go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do that. And obviously, guys, as Glasshammer, Manny, you've got your list off being painted, haven't you?
Oh, yes, of course. Matt from Crooked Wrist Studios has taken my army off my hands to paint it for me for the LVO. So that'll be really cool. I'm really excited to see what it looks like. And I am posting up progress pictures and stuff if you're interested on the Facebook page.
So all we're asking is use your imagination in this next one. This... Top points. Can anyone discover what this is going to be?
Hint, guys. Only concentrate on the base size.
Okay, so here we have it, and we're at Glasshammer, and of course, nothing is as it seems at Glasshammer. Manny, why don't you tell me about your dirty, filthy proxies?
So, here, what you can see is basically I have 2 Dark Apostles, 2 Sorcerers, a Master of Possession, and 2 Demon Princes. Okay. So what I just want to show you here, guys, is the synergy of where your characters need to go and why and the buff. So the Plague Burst Crawler is let's just say that is a Plague Burst Crawler of the enemy's list.
Because everyone's going to be running this right
that is
after this video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here are a couple of different things that you need to remember. At the start of the turn, you would have, say, been deployed trailing, of course, something like this, where your characters, because your characters will inevitably be left behind, some of them, by the Possessed and the way they move. Yeah. So say your pre-game move was something like this. Now, it's quite important to remember that at the start of the battle round, you want to have a couple of guys chaining back to your Dark Apostles, because they mean loads at the start of the battle round. they have to roll to see if you get their prayer off at the start of the battle round. Of course, you do have 2 Dark Disciples which sit right next to them, and that lets them cast their prayers on a 2+.
Of course, you can always do that before you pre-game move them, can't you, Manny?
Yes, exactly, because it's just the start of the battle round.
So you choose which order it happens in, so you could get your prayers off and then advance them.
Yes, but for example, if this was turn 2, you would at the start of the battle round, you would want to be placed something where you're dragging back to your characters.
So when you start going through, so you start with the Dark Apostles.
So with the Dark Apostles, you'd roll a 2+, and then they'd be -1 to hit. And with the second Dark Apostle, you'd roll a 2+, and they'd be +1 to wound. Now this is key, guys, because in the ITC format, what I've done is I've taken the cultists out of my list to have slightly more durable troops, like Nurglings, but it means I have 1 less battalion, and that means 4 less command points I have. So 4 less command points is basically like 3 turns of Veterans of the Long War, or 4 turns of Veterans of the Long War, which is +1 to wound. And I thought, well, I can drop those if I have a guy that on a 2+ gives it me anyway. So I have +1 to wound just from that. Okay. So it's really nice to have in the bag. So you do that, and that happens at the start of the battle round, guys. From that point, you would then move your unit, so, you know, it would move that same amount, say, up the board in the same sort of bubble, but because you would still want to trail back to your characters for the psychic phase. And it's quite important they would do that. Your Master of Possession, you would want to advance to get, say he doesn't get right up to the back, but to there, you would want to advance him to get him as far up the board as possible. Same with your Dark Apostles, and your Sorcerers can be like up to 10 to 12 inches behind these guys, because your powers are like 12 to 16 inches, but like your Demon Prince with Warptime, you'd want to advance him so he was right next to them. But of course, he flies 12+ in advance, so he will always keep up with them. And your other Prince too. Now this Prince is Nurgle. He's a Nurgle Demon Prince from the Nurgle detachment. And what that means is his reroll ones to hit for Nurgle demons count on the Possessed. So even if you fail your powers, you still have reroll ones to hit. So I think that's key.
So the powers you're getting off, so you've got -1 to hit, you've got -1 for Alpha Legion, and then your Master of Possession, what powers does he cast?
So, the way it works is you have your Master of Possession bubble, and what he does is he casts Cursed Earth for his first power. So that's like all demon units within 6 inches get +1 to their invulnerable save.
And he's the Terminator in this, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Because he has a 40 mil base.
Once you get used to Glasshammer, you just learn what things are.
Exactly, you leave it to the imagination. Yeah, so that's the Master of Possession, and the key thing is he gives them a 4+ invulnerable save then, because they already have a 5+ for being demons.
But he's only a 6-inch range, isn't he?
Yes, of course. So you have to be with. That's why you need to advance him, because you have to be in range of him. And his other power is Infernal Power. Infernal Power, yeah, that's what it's called. His other power is Infernal Power.
Is that from the Infernal Discipline?
Yes, the Malefic Discipline.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Like that. So that's what he has, and what that does is it gives you reroll ones to hit and wound for Legion demon units, and they are the same Legion. Yeah. They are demon units. So he gives them reroll ones to hit and wound. So the Prince is there in case he fails it. They still have reroll ones to hit, but it's nice to get off because the reroll ones to wound is amazing for you as well.
Yeah.
Now, the Prince over here would normally either, he has Diabolic Strength, so he would either cast Diabolic Strength on himself and go into something when he can, because obviously he's a beast, or he would just smite something, say a screen that was in front of them, or the thing that they're about to charge, or just anything to do some mortal wound. It's nice to have that mortal wound ability there. Then you have your 2 Sorcerers. Now one has the Malefic Tome, because of course the Wordbearer Prince is your Warlord. The 2 Sorcerers are with him in the Wordbearer's detachment. One has the Malefic Tome, which is +1 to cast powers, and he knows an additional power. So you give him Miasma and Prescience. Now that's because Prescience is a little harder to get off, but you want to get it off. So if you give him +1, he's casting it on a 6. So he casts Miasma on a 6, which is a 5 for him. Casts Miasma on a 5, which is -1 to hit on a unit, which works in combat too, guys, which is awesome. Yeah. And then he casts, of course, Prescience on a 6 to give them +1 to hit, which is huge. Then you have...
That's for your Veterans of the Long War to start spiking.
Yes, it's for the Death of the False Emperor to start spiking.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing as well, because you've got the +1 to wound from the Dark Apostle. So they're +1 to wound, rerolling 1s to wound. And now they're +1 to hit. So they normally hit on 3s, guys, but like Andy said, you cast the Prescience and they're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s now. Yeah. So they're really, really reliable. So he casts Prescience and what was the other one that we just said? Prescience and miasma on them to make them reliable in combat and survivability.
Yeah, so now they're -3 to hit.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
And then the other sorcerer is the one, he has Warptime. And of course his last power is just smite, he's there for smite, but you give him Death X just in case. Now, he purposely has Warptime and Death X because Death X is slightly harder to get off, meaning you're more likely to fail it than to cast it. But you have a word bearer stratagem where you roll for a power. If it goes off, perfect, great. But if it doesn't go off, if it fails to go off, you can then auto cast it. It's cast on the lowest value, so a Warptime would be cast on a 6, and a Death X would be cast on an 8. Your opponent is not allowed to deny it. They cannot deny the Witch against that power.
Does that include Iron Hands, does it?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, because that's not technically
which is a little bit silly because it's the way it's worded. If it says you will automatically deny an enemy psychic power in 20 inches, then yes, it would work on the Iron Hands. But I believe it says something like
it's
negate
resisted.
the effects of this power or something like that. So it doesn't quite work on them. It would be amazing if it did, but unfortunately it doesn't.
And you've got a Warlord in there as well, haven't you?
Yes, the Warlord is the prince for the exalted possession.
But you've got two other.
Lord has been given a warlord trait for the -1 to hit, like we discussed with clandestine.
Yeah, the fly base, because this bit will be going first, is actually a Lord Discordant.
Yes,
really using our imaginations here.
But the
I don't even bat an eyelid at this anymore. I used to. After hanging out with you guys, it's just like, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
At least they're 40k models.
But the brilliant thing to remember is they are the Daemonkin Ritualists specialist detachment. So have used a field commander to take Shepherd of the True Faith on the Master of Possession, which is another reason you want to keep them within 6 inches. Now, the reason why you give them this Warlord trait is because they have to stay within 6 inches of him for Infernal Power to work, and they have to stay within 6 inches of him for Cursed Earth to work. So you're always going to stay within 6 inches of him. Yeah. So if there's a Warlord trait which benefits you hugely by staying within 6 inches, you take it. Yeah. Now, the Warlord trait is incredible. It means every time a unit within 6 of him, i.e. the Possessed, from the detachment, rolls 6s to hit in the fight phase, they count as mortal wounds. 6s to wound, sorry.
But it's unmodified.
Yes, it unfortunately is unmodified.
Because otherwise this would be broken, right?
Yeah, exactly, At the moment it's really fluffy, it's pure Nurgle army, but you could make it would be ridiculous.
There's a fine line, isn't it? Sometimes the fluff just spills over.
But no, if you put the mortal wounds on it, and they could be adjusted, it would be ridiculous. So the power that the Prince then has is, Virulent Blessing. Now that means that you do double damage on the roll of a 7+ to wound in the fight phase, but it also gives you +1 to wound. So, because you have that power off, it means you get +1 to wound, and now 7s turn to 6s, so 6s are doing double damage. Then you have +1 to wound from the Dark Apostle, like we discussed. So you have +2 to wound, and 5s and 6s are doing double damage. And then, if you come to that rare occasion where something is toughness 7 or 8, like a knight, you can then use veterans. So I built it this way so you didn't always have to use veterans, which is amazing, because +2 to wound. You're strength 5 anyway, so +2 to wound against most things means you're wounding on 3s or 2s. Against everything, you're wounding on 3s or 2s. But it's nice to have that option of, I'm hitting a knight, I will just chuck veterans out there, and all of a sudden, you're +3 to wound, and now 4s, 5s, and 6s are doing double damage, so doing 2 damage. And then also on top of that, 6s are doing mortal wounds. And it just means with that strength 5 and +3 to wound, you're wounding anything in the game on a 2+, which I think is incredible. Right? I mean, you charge 5 dudes into an Imperial Knight, and averagely, guys, 5 possessed kill a knight with the +3 to wound. I think that's insane. 85 points, guys. We'll take down a 400 and something .9 for you. So it's a bit ridiculous. But the reason why you move like this is once you've cast Warptime from this point, your guys will then move another 7, and it's very tempting to get everybody into combat. But remember what I said, guys. That's a key thing. Remember what I said. It only takes like 5 possessed to kill a knight. So as long as you have 10 possessed into anything, 2 or 3 units, you will butcher them. So the key thing to remember is once you then Warptime, remember, it might mean you're trailing, but it's worth it. trail back to your Dark Apostles for the start of the next battle round to give you their buffs, and of course the Master of Possession. So, you know, but you don't lose very many attacks, so you're something like that. Once you've charged, say you roll an average charge of a 7, you will be somewhere up the board like this. Now, as you can see, there's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 guys in combat, and this guy is there. He is still in combat, so you can trail back so far with just a few models. For example, if you were charging a tank over here, it literally would mean that you have 5 guys out of combat, I believe. So your measurements would be something of this sort, slightly bigger actually, and it means your chain is incredible. Look at this. So if the tank was one all the way back here, rather than over here, which is of course like another 9 inches back, 18 plus away from, about 20 inches from your characters, it would still mean you only have 5 out and 15 possessed would be attacking. So that's the amount of possessed that would take 3 knights down in one fight phase for you. So there you go, guys. That's the important thing about how to move this army up the board and how to stay around your characters.
Okay, Manny, tell us about your list and how it deploys.
So, there's a couple of elements to consider here. The naming, the main one is whether they go first or whether you go first.
Yeah.
So this kind of deployment here, it kind of works, this works best if I'm going first. So, I'll just show you the differences, guys. So, I've gone first here, and if I just show you with a measuring stick, because you can see it a lot clearer than a tape because it's actually 9 inches. If I deploy this way, it's done on purpose, because quite often these days you have a centerpiece in tournaments, like an L shape or possibly even 2 in the middle of the board. So in this case we've only got the 1. We're showing it with, you know, slightly less terrain than like Glasshammer Standard, for example. And what we have is this ruin is slightly, of course it's going to be pointed one way. So if we have this side of the board, and what I would do is I would deploy my possessed. As you can see, the middle of the board is about here. So the possessed are skewed off to one side, and that's on purpose because I want to play around this ruin as much as I possibly can. Now, if I deploy on this side, my opponent would be incredibly silly to deploy on this side of the board because I can pre-game move 9 inches. So, and you always pay the CP, guys, regardless of whether you're going to do it or not going to do it. You always pay the CP for forward operatives to move your possessed up to 9 inches before the game, because it then forces your opponent to deploy in a certain way. If they then deploy on the line, if you don't declare it, the maximum you can move is 7 plus a charge. So if they stay more than 24 inches, which is in their own deployment zone anywhere, you can't charge them turn 1, and they know that. But the minute you go, actually I'm going to move 9, then I'm going to move 7 to there, and then I'm going to move 7, I am in your deployment zone going to charge you. Yeah. So you reach the front of their deployment zone, and then your 2d6 just charges into their deployment zone. It's a very big threat, and people then find themselves having to stay 9 or 10 inches away from their front line, which gives you massive board control. So the reason why I say you would always use it is now, because I'm going first, I've put my army down like this, and it means, because I've skewed to this side, as soon as I move 9, I'm here. Then I move 7, and I'm here, and I can move 7, and I'm literally right up to this L piece, which will be in the corner of someone's deployment zone, and at that point, it would be incredibly silly for my opponent to deploy on that side. So my opponent would be forced to kind of deploy to this end, and of course we're just showing you in Dawn of War, guys, because it's simple. So my opponent would be forced to deploy in this end of the board, and what that allows me to do is then move my possessed still in that sort of direction, because if you move like this, if I was to move my possessed 9 inches this way, they then wouldn't be able to see me with their entire army. And I could then, of course, move 7 inches that way. So, or I could just move directly 9 and then 7 that way, and I would be protected behind this wall. So that's normally the way that you want to play with the possessed. For it now, talking about going second, and I think this is the most important, guys, because going first this list is incredible, but the mechanic works itself. There's one thing you do, and that's all you do. You pay to move before the game, and you move before the game, and you move again, and you get them somewhere safe. Unless your opponent has been, caught out by what you do. I don't want to say silly, because that's not nice, but if your opponent hasn't quite comprehended what your army could do, and you have caught them out and they've deployed at the front of the deployment zone, then of course you just move 9-7-7 charge and wrap them.
That's what this video is about, though, isn't it, Manny?
Yeah, of course.
It's stopping that turn 1 tabling, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So just to tell you guys, if you're using this is how you should use it, and if you're playing against it, things to watch out for. So those are the kind of things to watch out for. Deploy far back from it if you can. And also, so let's do it going second. If I was going second, I think my opponent would deploy on that side rather than on that side. They would probably deploy on that side so that they could see into this big L piece. That would be the way if they had that side of the board.
Yeah.
That would be the way to deploy. Don't you agree, Andy? If they
Yes.
were over here, they could move quite easily to here and see everything in there.
Yeah.
In which case, what you would do, and I think that's key as well. The reason why my Nurglings here, guys, I'm just going to quickly explain, they look like this, is because we've done it based on if I go first. So if I go first, my opponent, it would be quite silly, but they could deploy their army on that side. In which case, I still have 1 unit of Nurglings they cannot see. But most likely they'll be deploying over there where I have 2 units that they can't see. So, I'm just scoring, holding the middle of the board, done area denial and stuff like that. And the key trick comes in now when I'm going second. So, they have deployed on that side. In that instance, what you would do is you would just deploy your 3 units of Nurglings on the other side of this wall from the side that they're on. So, for example, you'd have 3 units placed like that. 1, 2, 3 units. They're your Nurglings there. And in that instance, your Possessed would start on this side of the board. And you would put them about here, not too far back, because you have ways of denying them shooting them, and that's exactly what I'm just about to show you now, because it's quite hard to see and to just assume on paper the way that they move if they're going second. And people keep asking me, how do you not just get tabled if you're going second and someone's picked the side of the board where they can see into this massive ruin you want to get your army into? If you're going second and you're playing outside of that L piece, how do you not just get blown off the board? All they've got to do is kill 9 Nurglings, and this is why. And because I say, well, you just hide your Nurglings so they can't shoot them, and you have them for later on for scoring and stuff. And people go, well, if they can't see your Nurglings, they just shoot your Alpha Legion. And I'm going to show you a couple of things here. So, for example, like we were saying about going first. Now, the reason why going first works so well is because the Lord Discordant. So of course we just have a base here. The reason why I'm not using the appropriate models, guys, is the army is actually with Matt from Crooked Wrist Studios, because he's painting it for me for the LVO. So I don't have the actual model with me here in store, so we're just using what we have. So we've got all the right base sizes. So the Lord Discordant, like we were showing over here, when the Possessed move, the Lord Discordant moves out, and then you warp time him and he moves to the front. And the reason why he does this is so that next turn you can warp time the Possessed, and with his single movement he will still be in front of them. And the key thing to remember is he is -1 to hit outside of 12 inches for being Alpha Legion. Then he's -1 to hit because you'll cast Miasma on him. Then he's -1 to hit because of your Benediction of Darkness from your Dark Apostle. And then I buy him an extra Warlord trait called Clandestine, so he's -4 to hit. And of course you conceal the Possessed, so you can't shoot the Possessed unless you can kill him, and he's -4 to hit.
So that means Tau hits him on 8s, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's insane. I mean, broadsides, and riptides for that matter,
Yeah.
even if you have 5 Markolites, you're still hitting him on 7s. So, you might have 2 commanders in your army that can shoot him, and that's about it. And after that, you're pretty stuck, unless I decide to charge you, which I'll never do. I'll just take most of the board against an army like that and go, I'm on most of the board. The only way to fight me now is to come at me, which is what I want, because I'm not going to come at you, I've got most of the board. And of course, what you do in that kind of scenario is you take engineers, ground control, and recon, and just sit there. You move over most of the board and go, your Tau gun line is on 1 objective and I'm on 4, so I'm going to get ground control for 4, I'm going to get engineers for 4 because my possessed will sit behind a wall, and they'll be -3 to hit from your SMS, so you can't hit them, and then and you'll get recon because the middle of the board type thing. So it's very, very, it's a very, if I get to you and engage you, it's huge for me, but it's also a very, I can cover the board and force you to have to engage me, which is quite nice, because I think most likely you will agree with me, right, Andy? I think most people take 1 or 2 killy ITC secondaries.
Yeah.
So the minute you go, I'm just going to take engineers, ground control, and recon, and I'm just going to sit behind these walls here and there, you're going to maximise your secondaries, but then of course your opponent has probably picked some killy ones, so they're going to have to come to you, or they're just going to lose based on secondaries, which is it's quite important. Now, going second is very different. So your Lord Discordant going second can't be in front of them. So that's the main thing I wanted to show you, because of course, from what I'm saying, you would just assume you guys move 9, you guys move 8.5, he moves 9 pre-game, and then you still have to kill him, and he's -3 to hit, even if you've gone second, because his Warlord trait always works, the Alpha Legion is outside of 12, so that's in place, and also the Dark Apostle happens at the start of the battle round, so that's even if you're going second, he's -1 to hit. The only thing you don't have is the psychic power.
Can he move pre-game? Is he not? Is it infantry only?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to tell people.
Yeah.
So that's what, from the way that I was talking about, if you go first and you just get him to the front, people are probably assuming, so why wouldn't you do that if you go second?
Yeah.
Well, he can't pre-game move, you see, because only infantry can do that. So in that kind of game, he's kind of redundant for turn 1, and it shifts a lot of the pressure off him, which is actually very nice. So in that kind of situation, you would kind of deploy something like this. And I think your opponent has probably deployed over there. So in that case, you would just put all of your Plague Burst Crawlers on this side of the board. Somewhere where if they move once, they are instantly in front of the possessed for multiple turns. They're close to the enemy, then they're possessed for like 2 or 3 turns. But your opponent, so if they move out here, they won't be able to shoot you possessed because these guys are closer, because you can conceal. However, if they might have a couple of things that can come this way around and see you and stuff like that, and they can get closer to you than they can to these guys. And this is the key thing, right? So when I deploy in that instance, and it's quite a neat trick, guys, and people don't see it coming until you hit them with it on the board. So this is one to remember, guys. I would pay the CP to advance these guys as I was deploying them, and they would move 8 inches. Sort of like that way. And then my my Dark Apostle, I would also pay for him to pre-game move, and he would move the full 9 inches. So it would look...
So they won't be the closest and visible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it would be something like that. Now, you can move, so you have moved, and then this side of the unit can just move 9 inches up the board. So as you can see, you're going second, but you've still taken, with this side of your deployment, you've got the same as them, but you've taken half the board instantly. When thinking next turn, you'll move 7 and then move 7 again and then charge. You literally have half the board. In your first turn, you can get to that corner. So you've kind of moved something like this, and it's important to stay in range of your buffs and stuff. So you've done that, and what the key thing to remember here, if somebody moves out this way from that side of the wall to shoot you, they are well closer to these guys. They'll never be able to shoot you. But even if someone's over here and they're closer to you than they are on the tanks, they can still see your Dark Apostle. So they cannot shoot your possessed as long as they can't kill your Dark Apostle. However, they can't shoot the Dark Apostle because the Nurglings are closer, and he's a character. So the Nurglings are closer, that stops them from shooting your Dark Apostle, and because the Dark Apostle is closer than your possessed, it stops them from shooting the possessed.
Yeah.
But now, instead of having a Lord Discordant that they can shoot, they have nothing they can shoot. They can't shoot they can't target the Nurglings because they can't see them, can't target him because he's a character, and they can't target the possessed because they're behind the character. So it's very confusing to get your head around at the start, but the minute you do it and your opponent's kind of sitting there going, wow, I didn't think that's the way that you could do this, and they get caught off. And it really does put people off. And the important thing to remember about these is for a Nurgle unit, they're actually pretty fast. So they advance 9 inches. So he could come out up to their turn 1, say only 8 because he'd come an inch around the wall. So he moves to there, and you'd roll an advance for him. Say you only roll a 3, he moves another 3 inches. He is pretty much halfway up the board turn 1. So you could then possibly even advance your possessed this way, for example 9 inches, then 9 inches, and your tanks would still be closer. And the important thing about these is loads of people try to move them and then fire their mortars. I think that's only good in games when you're playing like Thunderfire cannons, because they're actually quite nice for taking out things like Thunderfire cannons. However, if you're playing like a heavy gunline army but they don't have Thunderfires or anything like that, I wouldn't bother just moving them normally to fire the mortar, because the mortar then hits on 5s. What I would do is I would just advance them every turn. It's the flamers that do the damage. And they clear screens for you to charge through and all sorts, so they are brilliant. And the key thing to remember, the reason why they are in the list is because sometimes you don't want to risk your Lord Discordant, so you give them threats like this in their face that they have to deal with, or do stuff like this where they can't shoot the character or the possessed, so they're forced to shoot these guys. And they do soak up a lot of firepower. But the key thing is, if I was going first, guys, and this is how the list mainly works, if I'd moved my army this way and their army was there, and my Lord Discordant was here, for say, after his warp time, then another warp time. Now, after shooting this guy at minus, and of course in that sort of scenario, you would just advance your tanks up, sort of this way. So in that sort of scenario where they can't see those tanks, they can't shoot the possessed, they can't shoot any of your characters, they have to shoot the Lord Discordant. Now, like we said, what if it's a Tower gun line, or even Space Marines, guys? What if they were an Imperial Fist gun line with a load of Stalker bolt rifles that do 3 damage against vehicles? Well, he's -4 to hit, so they can't even hit him. So that is something to remember. So they can't hit him. The way they have to hit him is if they come in closer, inside 12 inches, and then even then they're hitting on 6s. At that point, the possessed will charge. He will charge. And towards the end of the game, people with like some counter combat and stuff like that, they can deal with him, and they can deal with them eventually. But then you have another 2 demon princes that go in after that, 2 sorcerers, a master of possession. There's still a lot of smite that hits them, that hits their countercharge units, a prince that goes in and he just obliterates stuff as well with the exalted possession warlord trait. And then you cast Diabolic Strength on him. So here's something which is quite ridiculous, guys. He has 4 attacks. Then he gets +3 for having 2 sets of Malefic Talons. Then he has 1 for charging. Then he has 1 from his Warlord trait and 1 from Diabolic Strength. He has 10 attacks, guys. He is also Strength 7, +1 from his Warlord trait, so Strength 8, and then +2 from Diabolic Strength, so 10. So he can be, if you want, Strength 10 with 10 attacks, -2 AP on the charge, and he's hitting on 2s, giving himself reroll 1s to hit. And the key thing about him as well is he's damage 2, but with that Warlord trait, not only does he become super badass in terms of the amount of attacks and stuff he gets, but also he gets the possessed keyword, and word bearers, he is word bearer of course, word bearers have a stratagem where possessed get +1 damage on their weapons for the fight phase, so he can charge in, have 10 attacks at strength 10, -2 AP, and flat 3 damage. So anything that counterpunches them, you can warp time him in, send him in, and he will just wipe stuff out. So you have big threats other than those, which is what people don't realise. They deal with that, they deal with them, all of this then deals with whatever they had. They try to deal with this, and possibly, you know, by the time that's done, or if that gets done, it's very hard after dealing with him for say 1 or 2 turns, then dealing with them for 1 or 2 turns. You're in turn 3 or 4 at least. So if you're in turn 3 or 4 and then this blob of characters runs into your lines with the 2 demon princes and they cast powers everywhere, they charge everywhere, by that time you're definitely in turn 4 or 5 and you have to deal with them. So who at that point, what army in turn 5 or 6 then has the firepower for these 3 who are just wandering around holding objectives, flaming little scout units on objectives, and their toughness 8 with 12 wounds, a 3+ save, a 5+ invulnerable, and a 5+ disgustingly resilient save. They do not go down. So, in the 3 games that I played on the tournament on the weekend, I lost 2 of them in one game, and then I lost 1 of them in the other 2 games, and that was it. they did not die. Because people don't have, as I say, they don't have the firepower after they've dealt with this, and this has counterpunched them, and then they've dealt with it in response, and these guys have gone in. They just don't have the firepower to deal with that. And this guy, guys, of course there are ways around him, like getting close to him, but he has 12 wounds, and he has a 2+ save, and he has a 4+ invulnerable save as soon as you cast Cursed Earth and keep your Master of Possession there. So he didn't go down in any game on the weekend, guys, any game. For me, he was just a screen. So Lord Discordants were huge at the start, weren't they, Andy? They went in, they wrecked stuff. So loads of people were like, why do you have this as a disposable unit? And yeah, that's cool. I think the reason was, as 160 points, he is very reliable at smacking stuff, but I just took him purely as a screen. I was like, he'll defend me for 1 or 2 turns, and then he's dead. That's cool. So I discounted him from all of my game plans. I didn't want him to do any damage, but he didn't go down. He got shot turn 1 and turn 2 in most games and didn't go down. So then he got there, and he charged into people's lines, and he wreaked havoc. But then you've still got to deal with him at that point. So he does go down, but he gets in and does damage before he goes down, which I was actually very pleasantly surprised with myself. So that's how the premise of the army works, guys.
Okay, so we're back. So we've talked about what it does, where all the powers come from. Of course, this is the fun part of the video where we talk about ways to try and beat this sort of list.
Of course, of course. I think it's very important to cover this as well.
And we're done.
Because people need to know what they can do. So, key thing, right, guys? The minute someone with this list goes first, shake their hand and go to the bar.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's all I want.
This is
to know.
my drive.
Play against me. No, yeah. In all seriousness, guys, there are ways around it. But I think one of the brilliant things people can do is kind of like split. So you know how we were talking about the Tau? If they had 2 fire bases, what if they went in 2 opposite corners of the board?
Oh, that's good.
You know, because you're possessed are only 1 unit. They have a big footprint, but the minute you start making like a 15 long chain sideways across the board, you lose 2 or 3 from this side, you lose 2 or 3 from this side, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the board, but they're in the 2 corners. So they have to choose one way to go. So I think that could be a bit of a struggle. No one's done it yet against me, but because I think it's very easy for the possessed to hit something on one side of the board turn 1. But there's that's a very real possibility, and that could hurt quite a bit.
And because you're relying on things standing in front on one side of your army being the closest, like the Disco Lord,
Exactly.
you can't do it from both sides.
You've only got 1 unit that's got loads of minuses that's in front of them. I mean, the only thing you could do at that point is put the Disco Lord on one side with his -4 to hit, and put 3 Plague Burst Crawlers on the other side, and hope they survive out. But that's only going to happen for 1 or 2 turns. After that, people will be able to hit you from one of the 2 sides. So it becomes very tricky at that point. And I think that's something that can help.
Yeah. Any other tips for deployment apart from don't stand within first turn charge range?
Yeah, exactly. Stay out of first turn charge range, of course. But if you have things like scouts, now here's the important thing. It's so tempting to put them right by my deployment zone 9 inches away to stop my Nurglings from deploying in the board. But if you do that, it's such an easy wrap. I don't even, like, the possessed player would not even have to put their Disco Lord out front or a tank. They would just move their possessed 7 inches, then move again, and they'll be basically halfway around you. Then they'll charge to quite far in front of you and just leave a couple guys stringing at the back and only attack with 1 guy, and then wrap the like 4 remaining scouts, and you're stuck. But you now can't shoot them with anything. Yeah. So that's a huge thing. Do not give them anything to wrap. Because it's hard to do, but
because your aim with the possessed is to turn 1 and turn 2 stop them being shot, and then turn 3 onwards is just wrap stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then just assault, because you're wrapping into one thing and just chain them back and stuff.
Yeah,
Assaulting
exactly.
other things, isn't it?
There's so many things you can do with them. So I think wrapping is huge for them.
Yeah.
So try to stop them from wrapping, guys.
Yeah. And obviously, if anyone doesn't know about wrapping, I've done some tactics videos on like the assault phase, so be sure to check them out, and I'll put a link down below for that.
Those for sure are the coolest type videos, guys, because I think the combat phase is probably the most interesting phase of the game. So little tips and tricks that you can learn from Andy that he's done videos on are what you want to know, because I've learned so many things from Andy and his heroic intervention tricks and stuff like that I didn't really read the same way first, and then Andy took a look at them, looked into more detail and told me, and I was like, wow, I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered deployment. what do you think comes next?
So, some sort of auto-psychic denial is amazing if you have access to it. So, if you're Iron Hands, if you're Sisters of Battle, if you're Black Templars, if you're World Eaters, if you've got just some sort of mechanic in there where you can roll a dice and on a 4+ it just stops a power. As long as it says this power is... As long as it doesn't say you deny this power, because that wouldn't work. If it says something like that power is not in effect, the effects of this power are negated, stuff like that you can use. So having something like that, very big.
Because you're talking about your M for Children strat, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
But for the other ones you could deny.
Yes, the other powers you can deny.
So which one would you deny?
This is crazy, guys. If you have a gun line, it's very tempting to deny Warptime. So you stay far away.
Because that's the one I'd have thought would be your...
Now that's an option, but miasma is huge. If you stop miasma going off on that Disco Lord, he's -3 to hit. All of a sudden all of your Marines are exploding 6s, can actually hit on 6s.
Yeah.
So it's bad that you're hitting on 6s, but for example, you Grey Shielded some Imperial Fists, and every 6 is 3 hits. So 3 hits from a squad of 10, with rerolls hitting on 6s, is like 9 hits.
He's going down.
Exactly. So it becomes quite ridiculous at that point. So I would actually stop miasma in most cases with a gunline army.
Yeah.
Counters in combat, I guess. This is the interesting thing.
There's a couple more shooting things, isn't it? Well, we've done psychic. The shooting thing, they've got the Alpha Legion stratagem to
conceal.
Now, conceal is closest to visible. Mm-hmm. So if you can manoeuvre yourself so that you can't see other units apart from the possessed.
Yeah, that's huge. If you can manoeuvre yourself so that, for example, if I have Nurglings in front of the possessed, if you can manoeuvre yourself around, like, say, a ruin, where the ruin is blocking your line of sight to the Nurglings, and you can only see the possessed, you can then target the possessed.
Yeah, or like, you know, the old trick with 2 rhinos and then you put like a tank between them. So
yeah, exactly. So you can only see like one target. I think that's the kind of thing that you have to do in the shooting.
You got to pull out all these stupid tricks.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the Lord Discordant is there, because if I have a Master of Possession in front of my unit, for some armies it's quite easy to go where they can't see the Master of Possession but can see the possessed, so they can shoot them. But it's very hard to not be able to see a Lord Discordant standing in front of this 20-man blob.
It's almost like you want to model for disadvantage of that unit. Like
exactly.
Stick his arms up in the air.
Stick him out everywhere. Give him a pole that's like 10 inches tall and just go, that's his banner. So, those are like the things to watch out for, especially in the shooter phase. And also things like, if your opponent doesn't use conceal, because they think,
and it's
the
start of the phase as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to declare it before you start shooting.
Exactly. Now, something key to remember here as well is with conceal, it's the nearest visible enemy unit. However, for example, if you have a Thunderfire cannon and you can't see anything, they still have to be the closest target to you, because everything counts as visible to you, basically. So even if there's some Nurglings in front of them, so it's quite weird. You kind of at a disadvantage without a line of sight shooting, because if your Las Cannon Dread can't see the Nurglings, he's allowed to shoot the possessed. If your Thunderfire cannon can't see the Nurglings, he counts as being able to see them, so they are still the closest visible enemy unit. It's in the new Psychic Awakening FAQ.
Yeah.
Someone specifically asked, what if you have artillery that doesn't need line of sight to shoot an Alpha Legion unit? And they put, does it still have to be the closest enemy unit? And they said, GW said yes, they still have to then be
even if it's not actually using its out of line of sight bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just
because it has that rule, all things that are out of line of sight basically count as visible. That's the way you have to kind of think about it.
So the next thing, I guess like deep striking threats, things which drop in and can shoot, potentially can get an angle on you.
Yes, so that's the kind of thing.
But you want to do it from multiple ways, like split your firebase.
Yeah, exactly. So in my army now, what I've done is I had a Supreme Command before of Alpha Legion, which was just 3 characters and the 20 possessed, to make people drop outside of 12 of them. But what I've now done for things like cheeky drop pods that want to drop in before I have a turn to hit me with, I don't know, a drop pod full of Grav because they're Iron Hands Brigade or something like that. What I've done is I've taken 15 Alpha Legion Marines now. So you've got these Space Marines that can bubble out, and then you have a stratagem when they bring in that key unit to make their one unit, only one unit though guys, only one enemy unit. You could do it to one enemy unit, but you do it as they bring that unit in, so you get to choose which unit it works on. And that one unit is not allowed to deep strike within 12 inches of any Alpha Legion unit.
So this basically means that anything which is an assault deep strike threat is just useless.
Yeah, they're just not going to get to them.
Yeah, because you can't declare an assault outside 12. So
Exactly.
your smash captains coming down from reserve, it's pointless.
It's not going to work, yeah. So here's one key thing to remember, actually, because I have to use that stratagem in the opponent's movement phase.
Do you?
Yes. So if you have a unit like Sanguinary Guard,
Does
or
it
a
say
Smash
during
Captain,
or at the end?
It says during your opponent's movement phase, I think. Or use this, I think it says use this stratagem in your opponent's movement phase.
Yeah, before as they're bringing down a unit or something like that.
Yeah. But it says in their movement phase. So if you use a stratagem like Upon Wings of Fire in the movement phase, I can stop that. If you come down as reserves, I can stop that. But if you cast Da Jump, now that's done in the psychic phase. I can't stop a unit like that dropping within 9 inches of me. So there are a couple of ways around it.
Oh, I like
so
that.
anything that lets you redeploy in a phase that's not the movement phase is a big help, because that can't be countered by the 12-inch bubble.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
We were also talking about before the video about vanguarding smash captains and things like that with the hits on 2 tower.
They can hurt. If someone leaves a gap for you to get a smash captain in there, because turn 1, they've done something very, very wrong, but just go for it. Why wouldn't you?
Because you're going to be in range, because you're not going to deploy that far back, because you're an assault army.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just a case of if you spot that gap, you go for it, because they won't have any minuses to hit in combat, and you'll kill half the unit.
Yeah. It's very incredibly hard to do though, guys, because the one thing you have to remember is, if you've put your smash captain on the front line, which is where you would if he's going to Vanguard, he's going to move roughly 27 inches and then charge. So the Alpha Legion opponent then does know that there are 24 inches between your deployment and their deployment. So as long as they deploy sort of like 4 inches behind their deployment zone, the Alpha Legion, they're actually fine. So here's something for you Alpha Legion players out there. If somebody does have a smash captain like that, if he gets in turn 1, you're dead. You are dead. Like Andy said, if he gets in, you're dead. So something for you
Go
guys
to the
to
bar
do.
yourself and
Exactly. So kind of deploy 4 inches behind your deployment zone, because after he's moved, then he's going to be 1 inch away from you. If he rolls the like a 3 or a 4 on his advance for the 1 advance he gets, he will be in your deployment zone like 2 inches away from you, 1 inch away from you. But remember, at this point, if he pre-game moves, you also have a pre-game move. So if you then get to go first, pre-game forwards and run at him. But if he gets to go first and you fail to seize, move 9 inches backward with your star. Because remember what I said, always pay the CP to move that unit before the game. You can find out whether that smash captain is coming at you or moving backwards, which at that point it's going to play in your opponent's mind. Actually, if I move forwards here and he moves 9 backwards and I only roll a 1 or a 2 for my advance, I actually can't make the charge. So there's things like that you can do, but beware the smash captain, guys. I think the smash captain is the biggest threat for them. Now, here's a key thing as well that I've seen a lot of people doing, and is one thing that I'm tempted to experiment with, is I have that Lord Discordant, right? But the only switch I'm thinking about with this army currently, because I like obliterators, however, I like having pure possessed, and only being able to have that amount of command points that I have, and my opponent knowing that I have only got that possessed unit to use them on. It's huge. It means I've got command points till like turn 5, which is massive in this army. So the only change I am currently considering, the big one for me, is the contorted epitome. If I drop the Discord, but I have to drop the Discordant Lord, which is key. I drop the Discordant Lord and I can afford to put the epitome in the list.
That's really cool.
Yes.
So no fall, well, potentially no fallbacks.
But the incredible thing is you give him the gem. So a smash captain comes flying across the board at you turn 1 and goes, yeah, I've moved 27 inches and I'm charging your possessed, I'm in. And then the epitome goes, I'm going to roll 3d6. And if it's a 9, because if it's an 8, because of course your Nurgle Possessed have the icon when you take the banner. If you roll an 8 on those 3 dice or more, that guy can't fight in the fight phase.
That makes a sad smash captain.
Yeah, a very sad smash captain. So they basically wasted a smash captain. And the key thing is, it says they cannot be activated that phase. So he can't fight. You then kill him, and he can't fight when he dies because it's the same phase. So that smash captain does 0 damage. So it's something that I'm very tempted with, because the biggest threat to possessed is a smash captain. Albeit, it is a Smash Captain with the Teeth of Terror. That is the biggest threat. But we don't often see Smash Captains with the Teeth of Terror, do we? We see Hammer Captains now.
And you would take the hit on 2's hammer, wouldn't you? Because you don't need the 4 damage, because they've got no feel no pain, do they?
Yeah, but the reason why I'm taking why I'm taking the Lord Discordant over the Epitome is because I really thought about it and I thought it only matters for turn 1. Yeah. It really only matters for the turn 1 because a Smash Captain going in turn 1 fighting twice will kill the majority of your unit. However, what if he comes in turn 2, guys? Just a couple of quick stats for you. If it's a regular Smash Captain who hits on 3s with a hammer, he's going to run in there, he'll be hitting you on 4s. Say he's gotten quite lucky and he has 9 attacks on the charge. He's hitting on 4s, re-rolling 1s, so he'll get about 5 hits. Yeah. Then he's rolling on 2s, so say he gets like 4 wounds. But then you have a 4+ invulnerable save. He's going to kill 2 possessed. Do you care? I don't think so. So he comes in, kills 2 possessed, you wipe him out, he kills another 2 possessed. But that's probably cost him about 5 command points to do. Yeah. For killing 4 possessed, which is about 70 points of your army. I think that's amazing. Yeah. So there are a couple of things like that which you could do. And I just think the Epitome is only really useful for turn 1 because of that.
Other things which I think work really well is you've got flyers. Flyers can move around everything, can't they?
Yes, flyers can move around everything. Flyers are a big threat. Yeah, flyers are a big threat to the army.
But you were saying you would ring your...
Yeah, there's a couple of really cool things that you can do. Like you can make a bubble of possessed, then surround those possessed with characters, if it comes to it. Then you surround those characters with your 15 Chaos Marines and your 9 Nurgling bases and your 3 Plague Burst Crawlers and your Lord Discordant. Yeah. They're just not going to get to you. They'll never kill you by like the end of the game. But the key thing is, if they fly over like that, they will lose like 3 planes the next turn. You have 2 princes that can go in there and charge. You can make the one do flat 3 damage and just send him in. At which point you could give the other one Diabolic Strength and send him in, and that's basically 2 planes dead. And then you have access to like 5 smites if you want them. So you can kill quite a few planes.
Okay. If you play Elder or Dark Elder and you get a Vector power, which one would you Vector Strap?
Yeah, so the thing that you have to think about is if they were going to Vect, they would obviously Vect Conceal. Yeah. At which point, it's very important as a possessed player that you do all your minuses to hit on the possessed unit. It's very tempting to have a Lord Discordant that planes can't hit, but I think in that game, it's the possessed covering most of the objectives on the board that win you the game. So you have to keep the possessed alive. So I think what you should do in that scenario is cast all of your minus buffs on the possessed, so that if you get vected, the planes are still hitting you on 6s, which I think is pretty big. Yeah.
Next one to ask you about. So if you're going to, is it better to go after the characters, or is it better to go after the possessed, or is it better to go after the Disco Lord first if you get the chance?
So if you've got the chance and you can nuke that Disco Lord, go for the Disco Lord, because once his buffs are up, it's very hard to kill him. Yeah. So if you think you can kill him going first, you go for him and you totally just go for him.
So you leave the possessed alone and you go for the Disco Lord.
Yeah. And then the next thing is, if you can kill either the Master of Possession or the Dark Apostle that gives an extra minus to hit, go for them.
Because the Master of Possession's got the 4-pin bun, and he's got the...
and the real ones to hit wound, and the Immortals on 6s.
So I think he's the one to go for, isn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely one to go for. If you can kill him, you go for him. But if you think you're going to kill him in 2 turns, don't go for him. Yeah. If you can kill him in 1 turn, go for him. If you can't kill him in 1 turn, if you think, I might leave him on like 2 wounds and kill him next turn, they actually have a stratagem in that specialist detachment, actually, which I never really looked at. It was like the second one. I only ever looked at the +1 attack.
I remember what it is now. I looked at it as well.
You can take D3 mortal wounds on a possessed unit from that detachment, and a character can heal D3 wounds. So the minute you put him down to 2 wounds, he'll go 1 CP, I'm back up to full health. Yeah. So you don't want to go for it.
The other thing I was thinking about, some people run obliterators with them, with the devastation.
They are insane, guys. They are actually insane. Yeah. Those obliterators are very, very good.
This is like a dual threat list. The thing to remember with that is they can shoot first turn after your movement phase. Yeah. The one thing you can do if you're vanguarding a Smash Captains forward is remember it's like the shooting phase. So if you start scouts as close as you can to your enemy deployment zone and run them off the board, you can usually stay safe in the obliterators and still get a charge off.
What's this? Sorry.
So the obliterators, if you after the obliterators turn 1 with your smash captains, you can
Stay behind your screen.
You can stay behind your scouts
Because the character rule still works,
Yeah.
of course. So,
So-
they can't shoot you at the end of your movement phase if you're a character.
yeah.
Unless you're out in the open and there's nothing in front of you.
But I think that's one variation of the list you do see quite a lot is people running a blitz because they
Those
are,
of blitz coming in from reserve are horrendous.
Yeah.
Because you can conceal your possessed turn 1. Then turn 2, your possessed can run out, be -3 to hit. You could drop your obliterators in behind them, use Veterans of the Long War on them, and endless cacophony them, so
Yeah.
they fire twice and they obliterate 2 massive targets, and then you go, now I'll conceal them.
Yeah.
So the possessed are -3 to hit, so they're fairly survivable, but you can't shoot my obliterators now unless you can kill all those possessed. And if you don't kill the obliterators, they're going to obliterate.
if you try and drop in within 18 inches of them, they're going to start shooting you
Exactly, they have an 18-inch range version of Orspec scan,
with no negatives.
but
to
no
hit.
negatives to hit. Yeah, you're just hitting on regular ballistic skill.
Ridiculous.
Pretty good. And also, they're Legion Demon units. So if you drop them next to your Master of Possession to stay in that little ball, they're rerolling ones to hit and wound,
Oh god.
which is incredible. And they've got a 4-up invulnerable save.
Yeah.
So they are very, very tough to kill, even if you can target them.
Yeah. Good. So I think that's pretty much everything I can think of, isn't it? Can you think of anything else?
So those
No.
are the main points there.
Yeah.
How I would play the list, how I would play against the list.
Yeah. So guys, let us know what you think of this. Let us know what you thought about having the models on the table like that. I think that's something we're going to try and do again in the future, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, man, of course. For anybody watching, guys, that is going to the LVO and you're interested in these sort of tips and tricks and tactics, I'm running a masterclass out there, and it's available for purchase on the Frontline Gaming website, I believe it's called, or the Las Vegas Open.
We'll put it in the
tickets
link
page.
below.
Yeah, we'll put it in the link below.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys.
But yeah, Manny's fantastic explaining how armies work and these tactics. I know when I start a new army, I come to Manny and he shows me how to deploy it and how to counter deploy it, and it works.
And we come up with a load of things, don't
Yeah.
we? We come up with a load of different variations, and we try them, and we just think, oh, this is better, that's better. And
Yeah.
I think the best way to get better at the game is to just chat to people.
Yeah.
I think you learn a lot of stuff from people.
And Manny is a genius at writing lists as well. He certainly helps me out a lot as well. And you
Cheers,
can go
bro.
to
You're too kind.
So he's got list writing services as well at Glasshammer. So check it out. That's what I say.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me
Yeah,
on, bro.
absolutely. Good
It's
luck
been
at the
absolutely
LVO.
awesome. Yeah, hopefully I'll do really well and be back on again talking about how it all went.
Yeah,
That'd be a lot
and
of
if
fun.
anyone plays against Manny, post
Use
up in the
these tips and
Yeah.
tricks.
post up in the video below. Let us know what he forgot to say in this video and used against you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you're holding something back.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much, guys.
Take care.